forward to hear about her and to meet her. She's a young lady by the name Haben, and no more else or nobody else introduces her better than my good friend, my brother, Waldas Allah Tasbah Amaro.
Thank you, Dr. Ka. كلكم التي وراي عبد العالى درجان اختب صحوه تسعود زلهم بشنكم زربا خير وحكوا كله حنتي دروا أصبحنا عن الحجون زعبات زاري بنانيرنا جن نفسه كفسر حبن جرما يلون دحر جوجل جيرو تاريخها بحد سيرون أبو سلزلو introduction بتحكي زي خوص دايخهم كل سلزي حنتي نشتري بزعبات نقولكم هذا خابت أقداسي نتفتات النفس وكف أخيرانا إن كايدو أقدستي سبات بمعدان مهاري أرستي العلم أستمرون فأربولنا بزي مسر الدماء حبم جرما نايلون معدي عزستي ناي كبرقاشانا أربكم دس يبلاني حبم أبعشل عدمئة كبيد بهري أبكمئة زنبرلا بهريا وشكرات تحيسان عباي مهاريتم تتابعيتم نايسب أو مسألة في الله يدمع تتابعيت مسألة أكلت سجونات كتكون زبقات تبعن باللحن سبب سجماتا عشان نفا أبنت نايسن عكس هونت حكينا كخبيا حبن جرما كابلويس إن كلارك كولج تشحن عسرتن بمعارك بيئة تمرقت كزيلا دما كاب هارفارد يونيفرسيتي لو سكول خلتشحن 10 سنة نحقي معارك تشلمت أب هارفارد يونيفرسيتي تمهاري تابز نبرة اللؤوان عبي أدنى قد تترفت بنستي تمهاري زبل سيامي استقبلت كإلى سبيل أب وايت هاوس تعديما تتابعي نايلوت إتباهيلا استمسجنا سبيل أب استفرالي هرنعاتنا عدم إنها تعدمت أستمرتاتي مخرتاتي للتقرب وهبتي بعتها تبقانا أكاد السكون عن كينا أب كبابي أب كاليفورنيا تقلقل بركلي كاليفورنيا تقلقل حبن كم شما حبننا كلها نا يومه اسكينا حبن جرما كيدانا أتقوي ولتكرن سعادة حبيرنا نتابعنا I just want to say a little word in English too. I am honored to introduce you to our keynote speaker and guest of honor, Haben Girma. Haben is an extraordinary person who accomplished so much in her tender age against formidable obstacles. She conquered her disability to rise to prominence, to be a genuine motivator and a true role model. Haben Girma received her law degree from Harvard University in 2013 and BA from Clark and Lewis College in 2010. During her time as a student in Harvard, she was ranked one of the most impressive students. The White House recognized her as a champion of change. She is an internationally recognized person who travels the world to deliver a motivational speeches. Haben is a passionate human rights activist and a respected attorney and disability rights advocate in Berkeley, California. You see, her name is a perfect reflection of who she is. The name Haben, as you might all know, in our main languages, Tigrinya, Blaine means pride. Yes, indeed, she is our pride. Please join me to welcome Haben Kidana Adgoy, a product of Keren.
Hello. أنا حاجنيا من نشتي تجنيا فلت كمله. don't hear very well, so I want to try that one more time. Kamelahum. I grew up in Oakland, California. I was born in 1988, and both my parents are from Eritrea. So growing up, I heard many, many stories about Eritrea. Lots of wonderful, strong, inspiring stories. And I am both deaf and blind. For short, I just say deaf-blind. And I graduated from college and went to law school, and now work as a lawyer for a company called Disability Rights Advocates in Berkeley. And we do disability rights work, helping people all across the country to remove access barriers. In Long Beach, the sidewalks have giant cracks and obstacles that make it hard for wheelchair users to get through. So we're helping wheelchair users in California gain equal access to the sidewalks. In other cases, we're helping deaf individuals get access to videos online, so those videos have captions. Lots of different access issues, and that's what we do. And people ask me, where do you get your motivation to be a lawyer, to go to Harvard when you're deaf-blind? And I tell them, I'm Eritrean. I grew up with stories of resilience, of people being strong and standing up for what they believe in. I grew up with those stories, and with those stories, I can't help responding in the same way. When I encounter obstacles, I don't say no. I keep going. I keep trying. When I was in college, the cafeteria didn't want to make their menus accessible. So there was a menu on the wall, in print, and people who could see the menu, but I couldn't see it. So I asked them to email me the menu, and my computer would read it to me. They said okay, but they didn't do it. So after asking nicely, repeatedly, and nothing happening, I told them that there's a law in America called the Americans with Disabilities Act. And if your business is going to continue, it needs to comply with that law. That law requires all businesses to make reasonable accommodations for people with disabilities. I was paying for this service to eat at the cafeteria. They needed to make a reasonable accommodation. Just email the menu. Very easy. One click, copy, paste. And that's all I was asking them to do. And when I used the law to explain this, they understood that they weren't just doing me a favor, but they were also needing to comply with the law. And by making it accessible for me, they were making it accessible for all the other blind and low vision students at the college. And that's one thing about accessibility. When you do something to help one person, it often helps other people too. Ramps going up to sidewalks, that helps people with wheelchairs. But it also helps parents with strollers or travelers with luggage on wheels. So when you do one thing to make things easier for one group of people, you end up helping another group of people. And I learned to continue overcoming obstacles and supporting others because I'm Eritrean and I grew up with these stories. My mother's name is Saba, and Saba grew up in Eritrea amidst a 30-year war with Ethiopia. I grew up hearing the stories of how my family had to stand strong, maintain their culture, their language, their tradition, their stories. And those stories became my stories. And I grew up hearing those and learning that I need to be resilient. I need to be strong like the Eritreans. When she was 14, she was part of a marching band, and they supported what they believed in, equality, the right for everyone, their brothers, their sisters. And the Ethiopian soldiers didn't believe in using music to empower individuals and told them to stop singing. The girls stood up for their rights. And I remember that story, my mother telling me this, and so many other stories from my other relatives. The trip of coming to America, so many different ways Eritreans have done that. And you've all heard those stories. Everyone knows these stories. And these stories make us resilient. So regardless of the obstacles, whether it's disability and blindness, or whether it's poverty, or whether it's a difficult child in high school and you trying to maintain the balance between having an Eritrean Habesha hat and an American hat, you can overcome these obstacles because Eritreans have the story of resilience and making their dreams come true through persistence. So when people ask me, how did you get through Harvard Law School when you're deaf-blind? How do you work as a lawyer when you're deaf-blind? I just can't help it because I grew up with these stories. It's part of who I am, but it's also part of all of you. So I was asked to come here and inspire Eritreans. But the truth is, Eritreans inspire me. I wouldn't be doing what I do now if I didn't have the Eritrean stories growing up to tell me it doesn't matter how small your country is, you'll make it, you'll get independence. It doesn't matter about the misunderstandings in the international world. People survive. People will come together and help each other. That's our story of resilience. And it translates to all obstacles in the United States. Disability, poverty, careers. And deaf-blindness is just one of many, many challenges that I encounter. I now work on behalf of clients, people with disabilities throughout the United States, to make the country more accessible. Whether it's making sure videos have captions for people who are deaf, sidewalks clear for people who use wheelchairs. I'm supporting them, and I use that story of resilience. As a person with a disability, I encounter many challenges, and the secret to them is using creative solutions. There are lots of Eritreans with disabilities, and I think we can all do more to make sure that they have equal access to education and opportunities. I've met with students at the Eritrean School for the Blind, and I've donated some books. There are many Braille books here in the United States, and we could help them by sending those Braille books back to Eritrea so they get access to books. Reading facilitates knowledge. It's really, really important to be able to read, especially when you're blind. So I would love to use this opportunity to remind everyone that Eritreans with disabilities are out there, and they're part of our community, and also deserve equal access. And by making sure they have access to education, supporting people in the pursuit of knowledge, from books to wheelchair access. Money is something we have more of in the United States compared to Eritrea and other countries, but money is not always the answer. Sometimes it's just having the right attitude, having that story of resilience. I can do it. Regardless of the obstacle, you can do it. We'll all do it. So even if you have limited resources, or you can't afford to buy fancy computers, you can still find solutions by using creativity and having the right attitude. There are blind individuals in Eritrea who are making their way through the education system, even though they don't have all the technology that blind individuals have in the United States. But they still do it because they're resilient, because they're Eritreans, and because we don't give up. So I have a computer here with me. It's called a Braille note. It's called a Braille note. And because I'm deafblind, it's hard to hear people. And I use two forms of communication. I know sign language, and I'm able to use sign language with certain people who know sign language. But with others who don't know sign language, there's also typing. So I connect my Braille display with a QWERTY keyboard, which is a standard, regular keyboard, and people can type on the keyboard, usually in English. I don't know how to read Tigrinya, but there are blind people who can read Tigrinya Braille. I've seen it before. So that's a talent that I should work on and improve. But right now I just use English. So I would love to open it up for questions, whether it's about law, if you're interested in going into law school, or you have disability questions and want to know more about my motivations, I'd love to open it up for questions. So Gordon, do you think you could set up the keyboard? Okay, the keyboard is on and connected. So if people have questions, they can ask their questions, and Gordon will type the question on the keyboard, and I'll be able to read it on my Braille display. Ready?
Okay, Haben, I have a question. Professionally, part of my responsibility, I'm ADA coordinator. We have law in the United States of America to protect and to help disabled people to live right. What can we do these laws or this kind of, it needs education, it needs strong laws in developing countries. How can we expedite this kind of equality to go further to another countries?
Well, there are several different non-profit organizations that are helping to move that message. So, role models are a huge impact. So having individuals with disabilities come and visit those countries would make a huge difference. So I don't know if there are any programs that do that for Eritrea, but it would be great if we did. There's a program called Mobility International USA, and it takes students to Turkey and Bahrain they take people with disabilities from America to Turkey and teach them Braille, sign language, the use of wheelchairs. And once you teach those skills, those individuals become leaders in that country and teach those skills to their other members in those countries. So if we had an organization that bound Eritreans with disabilities or other non-Eritreans with disabilities from the United States and took them for 3 weeks, 4 weeks in Eritrea to teach Braille, sign language, adaptive living skills, positive attitude, that would make a huge difference. It's all about having the right skills in order to succeed.
I wanted to say something before I give it to the rest of the group. First of all, I'm very proud that there is a Haben Girma and whose parents are from Keren. We're very proud about that. just being is great to us. Secondly, I listened to her TED Baltimore talk. So if you haven't seen it, it's about 15 minutes. You will have an opportunity to listen to her. And what I learned from that is when they didn't send her the food from the cafeteria, didn't email it to her, she said, should I continue to complain? He says, my mother walked from Keren to Sudan. I don't think she complained. So she was going to give up complaining, but then she said, there are a lot of disabled people who are going to have this problem. So she had to do it for other people. So I think that was inspirational to me. I want to thank her. I'll leave the rest of the group to you. Hold on.
You want to say anything? Right. I'm going to give it the next person.
Haben, first of all, thank you very much for that talk. I was very impressed, to say the least. And I have a question for you. I know the resilience of Eritreans because we went through a very tough situation in our country for many years. My question for you is though, knowing my culture as well, we have a lot of challenges when it comes to disability or treating people with disability. We never talk about it. We try to hide it as much as possible. And I don't know if you've heard any stories growing up of how people were treated with disability, number one. Number two, I was wondering if you can comment on what we should do in order to make our people as open as possible to talk about these issues within our society, within our community, and what advice would you have that we can do to accomplish what you've accomplished in your life? Thank you.
Being open and accepting who you are is a valuable thing regardless of whether you have a disability or not. So we should all love ourselves and be proud of who we are, regardless of whether there's a disability or not, but especially for people with disabilities. For example, if blind individuals are going to be independent, they need to be able to